Sira floated in the observation deck of the Caverous orbital station, her long limbs moving with precise fluid motions as she scanned the streams of information flowing across the monitors. For her people, efficiency was everything. Emotion was weakness, and attachment was dangerous. Sira had spent 24 cycles, the standard measurement of age on Caverous, observing the ships that passed through the trade corridors, recording their data, and submitting her reports without deviation. She had never wanted more, and she had never questioned the system. In her life, everything had a purpose, and she followed that purpose without hesitation. Yet, today was different. A small human vessel appeared on the station's sensors. Its trajectory was irregular, and it broadcasted a distress signal. Protocol demanded she alert the command center immediately, but something about the ship's behavior drew her attention. It was unusual to see a vessel so far from its designated trade route, and Sira's curiosity, though foreign to her species, began to stir. She watched as the small craft struggled to maintain orbit, its thrusters firing inconsistently. The command center's voice cut through the quiet of the observation deck. "Alien observer Sira, you are instructed to prepare docking assistance for the incoming vessel. Ensure all standard procedures are followed. Do not deviate." Sira acknowledged the order with a simple nod, though her mind was already racing. What could cause such irregularity? Humans were known for their unpredictability, but she had never encountered one in person. They were primitive, chaotic, and emotional. Traits her people viewed as dangerous. Yet the movement of the ship, almost desperate, carried a subtle elegance she could not explain. When the vessel docked, a team of humans emerged, wearing bulky suits that reflected their lack of understanding of her station's minimalistic design. They were noisy, speaking in loud, overlapping voices. Sira had learned to filter sound, but the emotion behind their tones penetrated her focus. Fear, frustration, relief. She could sense them, though she did not know what to do with such information. "Greetings," one of the humans said, stepping forward. His voice was warm, and his eyes carried a mixture of hope and apology.
"I'm Elias, engineer."
We had a malfunction. We need assistance." Sira regarded him quietly. In her culture, greetings were unnecessary. Introductions were merely data points. But something about Elias made her pause. There was a certainty in his tone that was foreign to her people, a confidence built on cooperation rather than hierarchy.
"State purpose," Sira said, her voice flat but calm.
She guided them to the maintenance bay, where they began inspecting their vessel. As the humans worked, Sira observed, she noted their inefficiency. They fumbled with tools, muttered under their breath, and occasionally laughed at their own mistakes. It was illogical. In her people's view, mistakes were failures, not entertainment. Yet she found herself watching them longer than necessary. She felt a strange sensation, something she had never experienced. Intrigue mixed with a flicker of amusement. Elias noticed her attention. He paused, wiping his hands on a cloth.
"You're observing us," he said gently. "Do you find this entertaining?"
"Entertainment is unnecessary. Observation is sufficient."
"I see. You're thorough."
"That's good, but sometimes—"
"There's value in seeing more than just data. Sometimes there's meaning in the little things." Sira tilted her head, studying him. Meaning in little things. She had never considered such a concept. To her people, meaning came from contribution, from fulfilling a role, from adhering to duty. Personal value was irrelevant. Yet Elias's words, though simple, lingered in her mind. Over the next few cycles, the humans worked on their vessel while Sira monitored their progress. She noticed subtle behaviors she had not understood before. One human, a woman, kept a small device she occasionally glanced at, smiling briefly before returning to her task. Another, a man with messy hair, kept humming a tune, tapping his fingers in rhythm. These small, unnecessary acts fascinated her. Why would a being expend energy on actions that served no functional purpose? Elias seemed to sense her curiosity. During a brief pause, he approached her. "You know," he said, holding something small and wrapped in simple fabric. "There's a custom among humans. When we want to show appreciation, we give gifts. You helped us. And—"
I wanted to thank you!
Sira froze. Her eyes, usually calm and unreadable, widened slightly. Gifts did not exist in her society. Possession of a personal item was forbidden. To accept one was not merely unusual, it was considered a violation of Kevarian law, a transgression that could lead to recalibration, erasing the thoughts or feelings that caused deviation. Yet, something inside her stirred. She felt the weight of the small package in Elias's hands and the sincerity in his gaze. The pendant, he said, represented the stars over Earth, a token of gratitude and recognition. He placed it gently in her palm. The metal was cool, the engraving delicate. Sira's sensors detected no function in the object. Yet, when she held it, she felt a warmth spread through her chest, a sensation that was neither physical nor logical. It was personal. She looked at Elias, unsure of how to respond. "You may keep it," he said softly. "Consider it a sign that you made a difference." Sira's hand trembled. A minute, almost imperceptible movement that would have been unnoticeable to anyone but herself. She wanted to obey, to follow protocol, to return the object immediately, but she did not. Instead, she allowed herself a moment of contemplation, the first she had ever taken for herself. When the humans departed, she remained in the observation deck long after their vessel disappeared from sensors. She held the pendant and studied it as if it were a complex artifact. Though she understood its physical structure completely, she could not analyze the sensation it evoked. For the first time in her existence, Sira felt something entirely her own. That night, in the quiet of her quarters, she turned the pendant over in her hands, tracing the engraved lines. "Memories," Elias had said. "Objects carry memories." Sira tried to comprehend the idea. Her people stored memory in archives, objective and unemotional. Personal experience was logged as data, not as feeling. Yet here, in her palm, was something that transcended function. The following cycle, Sira encountered her superiors. They noticed a deviation in her monitoring reports, a delay in transmitting observations, subtle changes in phrasing, signs of distraction. They demanded an explanation. Sira hesitated. How could she explain what she did not yet understand herself? The pendant remained hidden beneath her clothing, a secret that carried weight she could not measure. She uttered a simple statement. "I am functioning within parameters." Her superior regarded her with suspicion. "Deviation detected. Explain immediately." Sira found herself silent. The words she could use to convey the sensation did not exist in her language. Warmth, gratitude, attachment. These concepts were alien, undefined in the Kavarian lexicon. She could only clutch the pendant discreetly and remain still. The days passed, and Sira's focus shifted. She found herself recalling the humans' behaviors, replaying small interactions in her mind. She remembered the way Elias had smiled, the way he had treated each crew member with patience, the way they had laughed and helped each other despite hardship. She observed herself feeling longing, an emotion she had never named. Curiosity deepened. Sira began studying human culture secretly. She intercepted transmissions, collected records, and analyzed their rituals and practices. She learned about birthdays, celebrations, expressions of affection, and the concept of personal choice. Each discovery added layers to the sensation she felt from the pendant. It was no longer a simple object. It was a symbol of connection, an idea that her species had long suppressed. One evening, alone in the observation deck, she held the pendant against her chest and whispered the only word she could find. Why? The question was not about the object itself. It was about the humans, about the concept of giving, about the freedom to choose, to feel, to remember, to cherish, She realized she was not merely observing anymore. She was participating, internally and silently, in an experience entirely new. Her attention to the pendant did not go unnoticed. Kavarian monitoring systems flagged unusual energy patterns, subtle micro-movements of her body, and changes in neural activity. She was summoned for evaluation. The officers viewed her with concern, their expressions flat but cold, the weight of authority pressing down. "You possess an unauthorized object," one said, holding up a visual of the pendant. "You have allowed it to influence your behavior. Explain." Sierra considered lying. She could claim it had no effect, that she remained logical and devoted. But she hesitated. She could not erase the warmth, the sense of choice, the inexplicable attachment. She realized that something had changed inside her, something that could not be undone by protocol alone. "I do not know," she said finally. Her voice was soft, uncertain.
"It carries meaning." The officers regarded her silently. Meaning was dangerous.
Meaning implied individuality, attachment, and deviation. Sierra knew the risk she now faced. She also knew, quietly and firmly, that she could not surrender the pendant. To do so would be to erase not just an object, but a part of herself she had only just discovered. That night, Sierra returned to her quarters. The pendant lay beside her as she drifted into rest. In her mind, she replayed the humans' arrival, their laughter, their small gestures, the kindness that had been given without expectation. And she realized something extraordinary. For the first time in her life, Sierra had received something meant solely for her, and in receiving it, she had received far more than metal and engraving. She had received the possibility of choice, the spark of emotion, and the first true connection to a world beyond her own. And with that, a quiet resolve began to form. Sierra did not yet know what it would demand of her, nor did she understand the full consequences. But she knew one truth with unshakable clarity. Her life would never be the same again. The day after the humans departed, Sierra woke to the cold, quiet hum of the station. Everything was as it should be, orderly and predictable. Yet nothing felt the same. The pendant lay on the table beside her, reflecting the pale, artificial light of her quarters. She reached for it, instinctively, cradling it in her hands. It was small, unassuming, yet it carried a weight that no object had ever carried before. A sharp sound interrupted her thoughts, a summons from the Kavarian command. Sierra stiffened. She knew this meant her deviation had been detected. She could sense it in the tone of the call, in the rigid formality of the message. Her pulse, measured and precise under normal circumstances, quickened. She had never been summoned like this before. When she entered the command chamber, several high-ranking officials stood waiting. Their elongated forms and expressionless faces radiated authority and expectation. One of them, a senior observer named Tavik, stepped forward. "Sierra," he said, his voice even but firm, "it has come to our attention that you possess an unauthorized object." She did not hide the pendant. Instead, she held it in the palm of her hand, letting it rest against her skin. The warmth of it was a strange comfort, a shield against the cold authority of the officers. "It is true," she admitted. "I received it from humans who docked at this station. It was a gift." The word gift caused a subtle stir in the room. The Kavarians did not have a concept for such things. Objects could have purpose, function, or utility. Nothing more. Sierra's admission was unprecedented, dangerous even. Davik's eyes narrowed. "Gifts are forbidden. Personal attachment is forbidden. Why did you accept it?" She searched for words that could explain the sensation, the feeling that had arisen when she held the pendant, but none existed in the rigid Kavarian lexicon. It was significant, she said finally. It was a recognition of my actions. It carried meaning. Meaning? The word hung in the air, heavy and almost forbidden. The other officers exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable, but charged with concern. You are aware, Thavik continued, that personal meaning and attachment are considered deviations. Such deviations can disrupt societal stability. Your behavior will be evaluated. Sarai nodded. I understand. They subjected her to hours of questioning, tests of logic, and neural scans to detect any traces of emotional disturbance. Sira answered every question with calm, measured responses, but inside, her thoughts were turbulent. She remembered the humans, their warmth, their laughter, their gestures of kindness. The memory of Elias's smile and the careful way he had given her the pendant created a subtle unrest she could not suppress.
You report deviation in your personal data logs, Thavik said, scanning the readouts. Explain these anomalies.
She could lie, claim that the readings were sensor errors, but the truth had taken root inside her. Am I considering concepts outside of my assigned function? She said carefully. I am analyzing behaviors that were previously irrelevant.
The officers recoiled slightly. Analyzing behaviors that were irrelevant?
That was precisely the kind of thinking that the Kavarians had sought to eliminate over generations. It was dangerous, unpredictable. You are aware that continued deviation may require recalibration? Thavik asked. The word carried the weight of threat. Neural recalibration was not punishment in the traditional sense. It erased thoughts, erased curiosity, erased the very spark of individuality. For Sira, it would mean the end of the strange warmth she now felt. Yes, she replied, her voice steady despite the fear coiling in her chest. The chamber fell silent. The officials were weighing their options, and Sira could feel the judgment pressing down on her. She glanced down at the pendant, holding it tighter. The metal was cool against her skin, but the sensation it carried was unmistakable. It was no longer just an object. It was a symbol of something she could not yet name. Freedom, choice, or perhaps even hope. After the evaluation, Sira was confined to her quarters for observation. She was allowed access to her usual duties, but was monitored closely. Every movement, every neural fluctuation was recorded. The scrutiny was suffocating, yet it could not touch the part of her that had awakened with the gift. During this period, Sira began to study human culture in secret. She accessed the transmissions they had left behind, analyzing patterns of behavior, customs, and rituals. She learned about birthdays, holidays, and simple acts of giving. She saw how humans expressed gratitude, empathy, and joy in ways her people had deemed unnecessary or illogical. Each discovery deepened the warmth she felt from the pendant, expanding her understanding of emotion and connection. One cycle, Asira experimented privately. She took a small piece of scrap metal from the station, a simple fragment with no function, and shaped it carefully in her quarters. It was imperfect, crude even, but she imbued it with a personal significance, imagining it as a token of her experiences with the humans. When she held it, she felt a subtle echo of the warmth the pendant had given her. She realized she was beginning to understand the human notion of a gift, not just as a physical object, but as a conduit of meaning, thought, and memory. The more she explored these concepts, the more she felt the pull of individuality. Thoughts that were once irrelevant became vital. She began asking questions her people had always forbidden. Why do humans give gifts? Why does attachment matter? Why does kindness, even from strangers, create an internal response? The answers were not simple, and the pursuit itself was risky. Her superiors grew restless. Reports indicated that her neural activity was no longer within standard parameters. Her focus had shifted, and subtle patterns of emotional response were detected. Thavik summoned her again. You are engaging in behavior outside of protocol, he said sharply. You are risking your own stability and the integrity of the station. Why do you persist? Sira looked down at the pendant. "Because it matters," she said simply. "It carries meaning. It is important to me." The word important was incendiary. Importance implied preference, choice, and personal value. All forbidden. Favik's gaze sharpened.
You understand the consequences, Sira. Continued attachment may lead to recalibration.
"Are you prepared to face that?" Sira did not answer immediately. She thought of Elias, of the human crew, of the way they had trusted her, relied on her, and treated her with kindness. She thought of the warmth that spread through her chest when she held the pendant, the quiet thrill of understanding a concept her people had denied for generations. She realized she was willing to risk everything for this. "I am prepared," she said finally. The statement was received with a mix of shock and concern. Sira returned to her quarters under strict observation, but nothing could erase the seed that had been planted within her. The pendant, small and unassuming, had awakened something that no evaluation or protocol could suppress. Days passed, and Sira's behavior continued to evolve. She found herself watching the empty docking bay, imagining the humans' return. She recalled their small gestures, the laughter, the shared effort, and she longed for connection. For the first time, she wanted more than observation and data. She wanted understanding, engagement, and even companionship. The station's communication network buzzed one evening. Sira intercepted an incoming human transmission, addressed not to the station, but to her personally. It was Elias. "Sira," his voice carried through the quiet of her quarters. "We are planning a return. We were forced to leave, but you've changed something in us."
"We want to see you again." Sira felt a surge of emotion, a mix of excitement and fear.
The Kivarian authorities would never allow contact, and yet part of her wanted to respond. She felt a pull toward the humans, a connection that was no longer abstract. That night, she held the pendant close and made a decision. She would not surrender it. She would not erase the part of herself that had awakened. And if the humans returned, she would find a way to meet them, to experience fully the emotions and connections she had only begun to understand. But she also knew the danger. Her superiors were watching. Any further deviation could lead to recalibration, a complete erasure of the very feelings that had made her alive in a new way. The station, once a place of predictability, had become a cage, and she was both prisoner and pioneer. As she lay in her quarters, the pendant resting against her chest, Sira realized that the first gift she had ever received had changed her forever. It had awakened curiosity, individuality, and the understanding that connection could exist even in the most rigid, structured of societies. It had introduced risk, but also possibility. She stared at the stars outside the observation deck, imagining the humans among them. For the first time, Sira did not feel like a small part of a system. She felt like a being capable of choice, capable of emotion, capable of giving and receiving meaning. The warmth in her chest was no longer subtle. It was powerful, insistent, and it demanded acknowledgement. Sira understood that the next steps would be dangerous. She would have to navigate her society's rules, the Kavarian authorities, and the growing attachment she felt to beings from another world. But she also understood something deeper. Some experiences, once received, could never be undone.
The gift had opened her eyes, and there was no returning to ignorance. And so, with the pendant in her hand, Sira began to plan, quietly, carefully, and with a sense of purpose that had never existed within her before.
For the first time in her life, she was not merely observing. She was choosing. The station was quiet, but the tension in the air was thick enough to press against Sira's chest. Every movement she made, every thought she had, was being recorded and analyzed. The Kavarian authorities were growing impatient, their suspicion of her unusual behavior escalating with each cycle. Sira knew the next inspection could result in recalibration, a complete erasure of the part of her that had awakened with the pendant. She could not allow that to happen. Her quarters, usually a place of solitude and order, had become a sanctuary and a prison at the same time. She held the pendant tightly, feeling the warmth seep into her skin. It reminded her of the humans, of Elias, of the strange kindness they had shown without expectation. That warmth had given her courage. She realized she could no longer remain on the station, confined by rules that denied her new understanding of choice and connection. Every detail had to be precise. She knew the station's systems better than anyone. She had monitored every ship, every crew member, every repair cycle, the maintenance corridors, the security protocols, the energy shields. All were mapped in her mind. She did not intend to harm anyone. She only intended to leave, to seek out the humans who had shown her that life could be more than function and obedience. During the night cycle, Sira gathered what she could carry without drawing attention. The pendant remained close to her heart. She did not need tools or weapons. She only needed the knowledge of the station and the precision of her movements. She waited for the right moment, a time when the security monitors were at their minimum efficiency and the patrols had rotated to distant sectors. When the time came, Sira moved like a shadow. Her limbs glided silently through the maintenance corridors, avoiding surveillance cameras and patrol drones. Every step, every breath was calculated. Her heart, once measured and predictable, now beat with anticipation and fear. For the first time, she experienced the thrill of choosing her own path, of defying the rules that had bound her entire life. She reached the scout vessel assigned for emergencies and minor repairs. It was small, nimble, and could escape the station without detection if piloted carefully. Sira accessed the control panel, bypassing security protocols she had memorized years ago. The vessel hummed to life, lights blinking across the dashboard. She ran the final checks, her mind focused entirely on the trajectory that would take her out of Kavarian jurisdiction and into human space. As she undocked, an alarm blared unexpectedly. She had been discovered. The Kavarian authorities had realized her deviation and initiated pursuit protocols. Sira's calculated calm faltered for a moment as red lights flashed across the control panel. The pursuit ships activated their thrusters, cutting through the void with deadly precision. Sira's mind worked faster than her limbs. She adjusted the vessel's thrusters, weaving through debris fields and asteroid fragments. The chase was relentless. Every maneuver, every twist of the controls tested her understanding of the human concept of risk. She had never experienced fear in the way she felt it now. Yet beneath that fear was determination. She would not surrender the gift that had changed her life. She would not return to a world that sought to erase her individuality. Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the hum of the engines and the distant blips of pursuing ships. Sira calculated each move with precision, but she knew that raw skill alone would not save her. She needed help. The humans, who had given her the pendant and shown her the possibility of connection. As she neared the edge of human territory, a faint signal appeared on her communications panel. It was weak, barely detectable, but unmistakable. She recognized the pattern instantly. Elias.
Sira! His voice crackled through the comms. We've tracked your vessel. Hold steady.
We'll guide you to safety. Relief washed over her, but she could not let down her guard.
They are pursuing me, she replied, her voice steady but urgent. I need assistance. Now. Stay calm. Follow our instructions precisely. We can't lose you. The humans coordinated a rescue with precision and care.
Their fleet was small but agile, using tactics that Sira could not have anticipated. They deployed decoys and jamming signals, creating confusion among the Kavarian pursuit ships. Sira followed their directions flawlessly, weaving through narrow asteroid belts and using gravitational pulls to her advantage. The Kavarian ships were fast, heavily armed, but they were predictable. Sira realized that the human strength lay not in power, but in cooperation. They thought creatively, adapted quickly, and trusted each other implicitly. Their coordination was something her people had never mastered, an unpredictable and formidable combination. Finally, after tense cycles of maneuvering, Sira's scout vessel slipped through the final blockade and into the human-controlled sector. The pursuing Kavarian ships halted at the border, unable to follow without violating interstellar agreements. Sira exhaled deeply, the first unmeasured breath she had taken in cycles. The human fleet guided her to a safe station, a temporary haven where she could recover. As she docked, Elias and the rest of the crew greeted her. They did not question her presence or judge her escape. They treated her as an equal, a being capable of choice and deserving of protection. For the first time, Sira felt truly seen. Elias approached, his eyes warm and reassuring. "You did it," he said softly. Safe now. You're safe. You're safe now. You're safe now. "It brought me here," she said simply. "It gave me courage." Elias nodded, understanding more than words could convey. "Sometimes the smallest gestures carry the greatest weight," he said. "You've shown us the same." The humans debriefed Sira carefully, learning about the Kavarian pursuit, her experiences on the station, and the evolution of her understanding. They were fascinated by the way she had adapted, by her ability to think independently, and by the warmth she carried from a single human gesture. For Sira, every word, every interaction reinforced the lesson she had learned. Connection, choice, and empathy were more powerful than rules or authority. But safety was temporary. Sira knew the Kavarian authorities would not let her remain indefinitely. They would regroup, reassess, and perhaps attempt a more forceful recovery. She could not afford to stay in one place for long. Her life had changed irrevocably. She was no longer a passive observer, but an active participant in her own story. The human crew prepared her for departure, outfitting her scout vessel with new shields, improved navigation, and secure communications. Elias remained with her, guiding her through the complexities of interstellar travel and teaching her to anticipate potential threats. The bond between them grew stronger, rooted not only in necessity but in mutual respect and understanding. As they approached a region of space rich with unclaimed planets and hidden stations, Sira reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She thought of the pendant, the first gift she had ever received, and how it had ignited something she had never known existed: the capacity to feel, to choose, and to protect that which mattered to her. The Kavarian pursuit fleet remained a distant threat, a reminder of the consequences of defiance. Yet Sira no longer feared them in the same way. She had discovered the power of connection, the strength of collaboration, and the resilience that came from empathy. The humans had risked themselves to save her, demonstrating that their species' true power lay not in weapons or strategy alone, but in the willingness to protect and uplift others. In the quiet of her vessel, Sira held the pendant to her chest and whispered words she had never spoken before. "I am free." Freedom was not just the absence of constraint. It was the presence of choice, of understanding, and of purpose beyond function. Sira realized that she would carry this lesson wherever she went, shaping her actions and her thoughts in ways her people could never anticipate. She was no longer merely an observer. She was a participant, a learner, and, most importantly, a being capable of change. As the stars streaked past the viewport, Sira and Elias plotted a course deeper into human space, toward safety and opportunity. The journey ahead was uncertain, filled with potential dangers and challenges, but it was also filled with possibility. Sira felt a sense of anticipation she had never known, a quiet excitement that mirrored the warmth of the pendant against her skin. For the first time, Sira understood that life was not measured solely by duty and obedience. It was measured by choice, by connection, and by the courage to embrace the unknown. And as she piloted her vessel among the stars, she knew that her story, the story of the alien woman who had never received a gift before, was only beginning. The universe stretched out before her, vast and uncharted, but Sira faced it with confidence, armed with knowledge, courage, and the quiet warmth of a gift that had changed everything. She no longer feared the rules of her people, nor the pursuit of those who could not understand her. She had discovered something far greater: the power of connection, empathy, and the courage to live fully as an individual. And somewhere, beyond the stars, the humans awaited her, ready to share not just their space and protection, but the lessons of their world. The lessons of compassion, generosity, and the strength that comes from caring for others. Sira smiled for the first time, a small, tentative curve of her lips, as the stars stretched endlessly ahead, and the journey continued. Sira's journey through human-controlled space was unlike anything she had ever experienced. The stars seemed brighter, each one a marker of possibility, a reminder that the universe was far bigger than the rigid confines of Kaverian rules. The pendant still rested against her chest, a quiet heartbeat of warmth, and a symbol of the choice she had made to embrace life differently. As a human fleet guided her to a safe station, Sira realized that this was more than a temporary haven. It was a turning point. She had survived the pursuit of her people, learned to trust humans, and discovered that connection, empathy, and freedom were more powerful than obedience and control. And yet, she knew her story was not finished.
Kaverian authorities would regroup, and the universe was full of those who could not understand the changes she now embodied. The station was bustling with activity, a network of humans preparing for trade, exploration, and diplomacy.
Sira marveled at the energy, the chaos, and the laughter that filled the corridors. Humans moved with purpose, but also with joy, celebrating minor successes and comforting each other during failures. It was messy and beautiful, and Sira felt an unfamiliar pull of belonging. Elias met her at the docking bay. His smile, steady and reassuring, reminded her of the first warmth she had felt from the pendant. "You're here," he said, almost in disbelief.
"You made it." Sira nodded. "I did."
"And I will not go back." Elias placed a hand lightly on her arm.
"Then let's make sure you never have to."
They spent cycles preparing for the inevitable. Kaverian emissaries would come demanding her return, and Sira understood the gravity of the situation. She could face them as a fugitive, or she could help create a bridge between humans and her people, a bridge built not on fear or submission, but on understanding.
Sira began to study diplomacy, learning the language, customs, and strategies of human negotiation.
She realized that her role was unique. She knew Kaverian logic and culture intimately, and she understood human emotion and ingenuity. With this knowledge, she could act as a translator of both mind and heart, guiding each side toward comprehension rather than conflict. The first emissaries arrived sooner than expected. Kaverian ships appeared at the edge of the human sector, broadcasting demands for Sira's immediate return. Their tone was cold, mechanical, and unyielding. The humans convened a council to respond, and Sira stood at the center, holding the pendant in her hand.
"You want me returned,"
she said to the Kaverian delegation.
"You think I am lost, corrupted by human influence, but you misunderstand."
"I have learned something your protocols cannot teach. I have learned that choice, connection, and compassion are not weaknesses. They are strength." The Kaverian officers regarded her silently, their expressions a mixture of suspicion and confusion. No one had ever spoken like this before. Sira continued, her voice steady, fueled by the certainty she had gained from her experiences. "Humans do not disrupt society by caring. They build it. They collaborate, innovate, and protect each other because they value individuals. I have seen it.
I have experienced it, and I am stronger for it."
A long silence followed. The humans looked to Sira, trusting her judgment. Elias squeezed her shoulder lightly, signaling his support. The Kavarians, for the first time, were confronted with a perspective they could not easily dismiss. One of the officers, Thavik, spoke cautiously.
You claim strength and attachment and individuality. How can such behavior serve your people?
How can it benefit us? Sira held up the pendant. This small object, given freely without expectation, has changed my life. It has taught me courage, choice, and understanding. Imagine if your people could learn that giving, kindness, and recognition of individuality could strengthen society rather than weaken it.
I am proof. The Kavarians were silent again, processing what she had said.
For generations, they had dismissed personal attachment as dangerous. Now they faced a being who had embraced it and emerged stronger, wiser, and more capable than before. Negotiations began, slow and cautious. Sira acted as intermediary, translating not just words but concepts. She explained human customs, the value of gifts, of gratitude, and of cooperation that was not coerced but chosen. She described the warmth she felt from the pendant and how it had inspired her courage and individuality. The Kavarians struggled to understand, but Sira's sincerity, clarity, and unwavering conviction made it difficult to dismiss her arguments. During these cycles, Sira noticed subtle changes among the Kavarian officers. Some began to question long-held beliefs. They asked her about human celebrations, the giving of gifts, and the importance of memory and personal choice. Sira answered carefully, guiding them to see that these practices did not undermine society, but enriched it. Meanwhile, humans and Kavarians observed each other cautiously. There were misunderstandings, mistrust, and moments of tension. Sira facilitated dialogue, ensuring that no aggression escalated. She shared stories of her own experiences, demonstrating the value of empathy and the strength it could create. Slowly, bridges were built where walls had once stood. To symbolize a new beginning, Sira proposed a ceremony. She suggested that humans and Kavarians exchange gifts, objects chosen to carry meaning and gratitude. The Kavarians hesitated, unsure how to participate in something so foreign. Sira guided them, explaining the intention behind each gesture. Humans offered small tokens of appreciation, while Kavarians selected simple objects from their environment, imbued with thought and care. When it was Sira's turn, she stepped forward and presented Elias with a crystal she had crafted herself. Inside it, she had captured the memory of her first sunrise on Kavaris, a sight she had never shared with anyone before. It was a gift of gratitude, of connection, and of trust. Elias received it with awe, understanding its significance not just as an object, but as a symbol of her growth and the bond they had formed. Elias, in turn, offered her a small device that recorded Earth's night sky. The stars blinked gently in the crystal casing, a reminder of the humans who had shown her kindness and courage. When she held it, the pendant's warmth seemed to intensify, a quiet affirmation that her choices had mattered. The ceremony had an impact far beyond the immediate participants. Across Kavarian society, whispers spread about the alien woman who had embraced humanity's ways and survived. Some viewed her as a traitor, others as a pioneer. The story of her courage and the small, meaningful gift she had received began to inspire subtle change. Citizens who had never considered individuality or personal connection began to question the rigidity of their society. For Sira, the most important change was personal. She had moved from being an observer to a participant. She had experienced fear, excitement, and joy. She had learned the power of choice and the importance of empathy. The pendant, once a small symbol of gratitude, had become a reminder of her transformation, of the life she had chosen to embrace fully. With the immediate threat of pursuit behind her and a fragile alliance forming, Sira and Elias planned their next steps. They would travel together, exploring new sectors of the galaxy, spreading knowledge, and fostering understanding between civilizations. Sira understood that change would not happen overnight, but she had become a catalyst, a bridge between worlds.
As she prepared to depart, she looked at the stars through the station's viewport. Each point of light represented possibility, adventure, and the unknown.
She held the pendant close and whispered words she had once thought impossible.
I am not bound by fear. I am free.
I am connected. I choose. Elias joined her at the viewport, his hand brushing lightly against hers.
We'll face the universe together, he said.
No one can take that from us. Sira smiled, feeling warmth and certainty for the first time in her life. The pendant, the gift she had never expected, had opened a door to courage, freedom, and connection. She realized that gifts were more than objects. They were expressions of thought, emotion, and care, tools that could change lives, societies, and even civilizations. As their vessel left the station and glided into the vastness of space, Sira knew that this was only the beginning. Kavarian society would not change overnight, nor would humans and aliens understand each other immediately. But through patience, dialogue, and empathy, bridges could be built and understanding could flourish. For Sira, the lesson was clear. The smallest gestures could carry the greatest weight. The simplest gifts could change destinies, and the courage to embrace choice could spark revolutions of thought. She had received a gift once, and now she had become a giver of knowledge, of connection, and of hope. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, and with Elias by her side, Sira felt the quiet thrill of infinite possibility. She was no longer merely an observer of life. She was a participant, a creator, and a bridge between worlds. The universe awaited, vast and uncharted, but she faced it with the strength of connection, the courage of choice, and the warmth of a gift that had changed everything. And in her quarters, the pendant rested beside the crystal, a silent reminder that sometimes the simplest act, a gift given freely, could transform not just one life, but entire civilizations. Sira reached for it and held it to her chest. She smiled, not just at the past, but at the future. The stars outside reflected her hope. The unknown stretched endlessly, and she knew that she had discovered something no rule or authority could ever take from her: the power to choose, to care, and to connect.